thank you to those who still stayed to listen about the construction project. So it's funny. It's not a funny project, actually. It's a difficult one. However, TEPPFA, I would like just one slide to explain you who we are. And TEPPFA is the European Plastic Pipes and Fittings Association. Across national associations and company members, we represent the 10 bigger players in the European market and 350 SMEs. So we are actually representing a huge part of the market. Our technical secretariat, so you are now familiar with this name. So it's the working group which is leading the specific pilots. It's composed, so it's led by TEPPFA, but we also have Raw Materials, so Plastics Europe. We have Plastic Recyclers Europe, European Copper Institute, so you can see it's a multi-material one, and VITO, which is the Flemish Institute for Technological Research. In fact, with VITO, TEPPFA has been working in the last years to assess environmental product declarations based, in fact, on the European standard EN 15804. So basically, we are using the know-how that we got and gathered during this previous life cycle analysis and try to apply this as well into PEF. But I'll go back to that. We are looking at hot and cold water supply pipes within the building, and we are looking at 3 materials. It's polymer, aluminum polymer, PEX, and copper. Those are competitors in the market, so this is a little bit, perhaps a little bit more complete, but also challenging at the same time. So, and it's also true that we are not looking into a functional unit on a specific product, so we are not looking at a meter of pipe or kilograms or whatever. We're taking a system approach, so it's pipes, fittings, and all the necessary accessories that you will need to deliver the water to the tap. It looks like that, the functional unit, actually. Okay, let's try to make it simple. You still have to use some fantasy, so you have to imagine a 5-story apartment building, and it's 100 square meters average European apartment. I tend to say European because when presenting this in the US, people start laughing. 100 square meters? What's that? So it's a 50-year service lifetime, it's a design lifetime, and we use for this a European, we do have a European standard, and is a European installation standard. So this was actually a good compromise between competitors to agree on a common way to actually have a functional unit. We are taking again, so in TEPPFA previous studies, we did this in the same way. We took a life from cradle to grave life cycle approach. You see here in gray, I don't know if it's a pointer, it's not. Anyhow, the maintenance and repair, so the use phase. In the very first stage, we decided to take it out, but because it was very actually difficult to assess. How do you assess the use stage and what kind of elements you're going to take into consideration? However, as Emily explained before, this is a transparent process. Therefore, our documents are published and read. And as a result of the stakeholder consultation during the screening phase, we'll be also including this part. Therefore, we'll be taking into consideration the energy losses during the use phase. The representative product that so only for the pilot phase, all the pilots have to define a product which is going to be the representative one, and on which the screening phase is going to be run. Could have been a virtual or a real one. Now you understand that, as I mentioned before, it's competitors. They have different materials, different products with actually different characteristics. Therefore, we decided that the best option was to go for a virtual one. Therefore, we have done actually, we had 3 separate bill of materials to have 3 different environmental profiles for every material. And by this, based on market shares, we're going to merge the environmental profile of the hot and cold water system in the building. It's going to be basically the preliminary benchmark for our systems. for those who are familiar but also not, we know that it's important, the screening phase, because we're going to be able to actually highlight the most relevant life cycle stages, processes, and also impact categories. Obviously, we'll start discussing benchmarks as well. So this is another topic and something new for the construction products. You have seen this timeline before, I think, in both Michele and Rana's presentation. So it's the timeline which has been proposed by the European Commission. We are less or more here, so I would have been very glad to present some other results. But for the time being, we have done the screening phase, but we still need to merge the environmental profile of our system. A couple of months actually running late, like Emily, and a little bit. Perhaps the Commission will extend this deadline. Okay, I mentioned before the European standard, the EN 15804. So we already had some assessments. We actually had assessed almost the major applications in plastic piping systems based, so we had EPDs, and we have still them, and they are available on our website if you want to have a look, based on the EN 15804 methodology. This methodology basically, it's meant for B2C, so it's for construction products. It's not meant to create comparisons, or it's not actually, it's not there for benchmarking. And actually the question came spontaneous to us, why another methodology while we already had a good one? Well, because I think Michele mentioned this morning, because there are two different tools actually to achieve different objectives. While the European standard provided a very good assessment and gave a document with a clear, specific analysis of the environmental performance of a specific product, PEF is meant to compare, PEF is meant to benchmark, and to actually give to the policy makers a tool to define the products in the market, or to exchange this. There are some differences. You have seen those a little bit, those who are in the construction industry, and if you're sitting here, definitely you have a direct interest. The major ones are, and those which are creating a little bit of issues as well, is the data alignment, so different data requirements for the two methods. End of life. So while in EN 15804, it's a standard based on models, so you can pick and choose, and the end of life is so-called famous module G. It's not mandatory. In PEF, you have actually to take into consideration also the end of life. The benchmarking, it's not one of the objectives of EN 15804, while it's actually one of the objectives of PEF. And the impact categories. So in European Standard 15804, between a huge list, there was a core of 7 impact categories, which were those that everyone has to assess, and the others are optional. While PEF has 14 impact categories, which are all of them mandatory at the very first stage. One of the results that as a construction industry we actually, or achievements, we think, we take it like that, is that we have managed, thanks also to the ouverture mentale of the European Commission as well, and also the other side of the policymakers or standard makers. So basically, it has been created, this working group, and for us it's very important. It's the European Commission, but both DG, so Environment, Enterprise, but also GRC, the Construction Products Europe, so European Association representing all construction products, the CEN TC 350, so it's the European Standards Committee for the Sustainability of Construction Products, and 2 members of the 5 pilots which are dealing with the construction products. And the scope is actually to prepare the basis for a future alignment of these 2 methods, because to the end of the day, we as industry, we only need one standard, so we cannot just assess environmental analysis with different standards, and then what do we do with it? It started in July, and it's expected, so a couple of years of work, it's expected to end in December 2006, which is actually the same timing that the PEF pilots will end. And we hope that the outcome of this work done jointly between all the important players of this sector will be actually feeding the discussion, the political discussion, which will start and after the learning phase of the pilots. To conclude, I can say that until now, what we have done, and from this first analysis we have done, we see that there is a correlation between 15804 and PEF. So it's actually feasible to transform the previous studies or to assess them and to align them with PEF requirements. And I repeat again, this pilot phase is actually giving the opportunity to the industry to work together with the Commission and see actually what can work and what cannot work. And finally, we will end up with only one standard. So that was my last slide, and I thank you for your attention.